Oh, g'day, mate, and how the bloody hell are ya? This is In the Back of My Head podcast, episode 63 at this point. It's a little creative journal, creative podcast, where I just yap about creativity, whatever's in the back of my head, and try and make some sense of the things that are rattling around rather than just having them bounce back and forth, growing in intensity, growing to a fever pitch. That's no good for me, it's no good for the people around me. And so, I journal it down into a hot mic. Let's get fucking started, baby. I took a little week off. I've been taking a lot of weeks off of this thing, but the last week's time off was due to heading out to the country, heading out to Maldon in central Victoria. A place I know very well, a place I've spent much of my early childhood in and around folk festivals. It was quite nostalgic. It was quite nostalgic walking the cobbled streets of Maldon once again and going, oh, I remember being a little tyke over there, hearing some banjos, hearing some mandolins. What about women-dolins, you know? What about she-dolins? And it was great. During the day, it was pretty nice. It was the oldest bakery in Australia, the longest running bakery in Australia, I think. It was their claim to fame. That sounds like a crazy claim to fame. It makes sense for it to be in the goldfields though, I suppose. But the reason we went out there, me and my partner went out there, was to take a week off, get away from everything for a little bit, which is a classic thing to do. Oh, we love to get out of the city. I just gotta get out of the city, you'll hear them say. I gotta get away from the hustle, the bustle, the grind sets, the mindsets, the street lights, the honking. I could get away from some tooting. But the country has its own issues. People are aggressive and on the horn in the city. In the country, people are slow, meandering. Now, you could say that's probably a good thing. Take life slow, you're out there in the sticks. That seems fair enough. But bloody hell, when you try and cross the street and there's people coming at fucking 3 kilometers an hour, can we make a decision? Can we get a wriggle on, please? I'd like to cross the road. We went out there to get away from it all, as one would say, but also to be creative, to have a creative week. We wanted to record an EP. We wanted to write some music and record an EP. And we didn't do it. Didn't do any of that. We did some stuff. We mostly read. I did a little bit of writing, but nothing drastic, nothing exciting. More just journaling rather than anything else. My main issue with it was I'm now so used to the city that being out in the country, I just can't sleep because it's so goddamn quiet. I hear every little creak of the house, a little shift of a foundational support. Every load-bearing beam has a song to sing. And so every sound drills its way into my brain and I can't sleep. I'm like, oh god, is that someone breaking in? Once I heard a car go past, sweet relief, there's people around. Now I can't sleep without the sound of traffic, without the sound of the crosswalk. I need that to lull me to sleep. It's like a gentle ocean wave for me now. So I couldn't sleep out in the country. Too quiet, too eerie, don't like it. Come back to the city. We came back to the city early because we missed the people. We missed the pub. The pubs were closed in the country. Can you imagine that? A pub with no beer is the greatest horror story ever told in Australia. A closed pub is a terrifying thing. Here, at any time of the day, I can go, you know what, I feel like a pint. And we could discuss how healthy that is of an attitude, but having the ability to just go and get a pint, having the ability to go see some music, I just feel like going out. And of course there's music on, there's something to do in the city. God, I just can't live without it anymore. Can't live without it. The thing that came into my brain was that we went out there to have a creative retreat, which is a romantic idea, a lovely idea. To get out there, to get away from everything, to get away from all the thoughts, and put something down on paper beat it on some old strings, sing it into a microphone. And I felt absolutely no desire to be creative out there in the slightest. I tried journaling a little bit and I came up with a couple of little bits and pieces, mostly just about things being eerie in the country. In terms of actual creative output, I had just nothing to say. I had no desire to experiment, to explore anything. And I think I've been in situations like that before where it's a really great idea. I love the idea of we've got some time at a studio, or rather we've got some time, even if you're in your own normal creative space and then suddenly you've got a week off, and so you and a couple of mates are like, let's just dedicate this time, we're going to make an album, we're going to do something, Then now there's a ticking clock in the back of your head. I think that's what I was feeling. Is we went out there and there's this finality to it. There's now a huge expectation of just we're gonna walk away with something, It's a beautiful thing to be able to just switch on and off when it comes to creativity. Very difficult to do though. I really love that idea. I really admire those who can do that in the world of things like freestyle. I've talked about that a lot on the podcast. Any kind of improvisation is, I love that idea of just being able to walk into any setting and just go. All right, now's the time to be creative, now go. That's sick. But when it comes to writing something, when it comes to here's an inspired song, an inspired piece of writing, an inspired yada yada, then that's a little bit harder to just sit down and, okay, go. There is something to be said for just the process of just actually sitting down and beginning, because something will inevitably come. If you're struggling to write, the first step is just sitting in the chair. If you're trying to write some songs, the first step is picking up the guitar, sitting down at the piano, what have you. So we could have gone out there, we could have set this time, and this is, if you're going on your own little retreat, not out of town, but just setting one. I see it with mates who are just I'm going to be creative on this day. I've got this day free every week, and that's my creative day, which can work. And yeah, definitely just sit down and do it is obviously the best start, and something will probably come of it. But I think it is putting a huge expectation and a huge hurdle on that one time to just switch on. I think what I found is that because I am so used to just creativity is a routine at this stage, then actually breaking from that routine was a massive hindrance to actually do anything. It actually broke my creative cycle. And I wouldn't say that I got straight back into it when we were back in the city, but I'm definitely finding it easier that I have this creative space. Now, there is a lot of privilege in that, for I have a creative space. I have my little creative setup. My desk is all optimized perfectly to encourage my brain to be creative. This desk, the way that my creative setup is set up, is so inherently tied to the way my brain works in particular. There is as few hurdles as possible. Even I'm been recording these poetry segments for Reels and TikToks and what have you, and I have the mic ready to go at all times, so that when I'm writing a poem this one's good for the Reels, it should only take me 20 minutes to quickly grab the mic, do the performance, edit it, get it out there. That's important to me. If there is more setup time than that, I'm not going to do it. No chance. So having that creative space that is designed to be out of your way as much as possible is, I guess that's because so talking about that idea of just the process of actually just doing the thing, of just sitting down to actually start. I need to record some poetry. I need to record some music. All right, I'm just going to sit down. Step 1, done. Step 2 is just doing the thing. There's no more hurdles. Just sitting down was the only hurdle. Whereas if you go out, if you're going into a different setting, if you are not in your creative space, then you might find yourself with, I've sat down. That's all well and good, but now I need to set up all these microphones. Now I need to set up the system. Now I need to set up my space as well. Maybe half an hour goes by, an hour goes by. I haven't done anything yet. I haven't been creative yet. I'm just set up. I find that just debilitating. So yeah, really romantic idea. It was only a week. Not a long time. I do wonder. I'm thinking to bands of like the 60s and 70s. Like it was a very classic. I feel like that was a very classic tale of like Led Zeppelin. How did you come up with this new album? It's fantastic. And they said, oh well, we went and stayed in this old house in the countryside of England for 6 months and just hung out, and then we got this album. But that's 6 months, they're out there. I guess in that space then, well, also they have the fewer hurdles because they would have people to set up all the equipment. So all they need to do is just fucking dick around. By dick around, I mean write some of the best rock music of all time. Or rather steal some of the best rock music of all time. But also, with 6 months, you have time to get into your habits, time to get into your routine. I really subscribe to the idea of routine being one of the most important parts of being creative, of actually putting out stuff. So in that context before, in that situation before, talking about like you've only got one time in a week, and again, this is from a privileged position. So if you're if you're a parent and working a job and you also want to be a painter, yeah, there might literally only be a couple of hours every week where you can do it. So like, not begrudging that, different circumstances, 100%. However, for those who aren't in that situation, who have got a little bit more time to spare, perhaps the best way is not a giant chunk one time a week, but rather it's little chunks throughout the week. That can also be difficult. I have been finding that like if I try and tap into just writing, I'm just trying to sit at my desk and write, be it poetry, be it short stories, be it whatever. I'm trying to do that a lot more, and I am finding that a full day of that can be beneficial compared to trying to just tap into it for an hour, if the rest of the day is like taking up your mental capacity, and then like, okay, time to write. Yeah, difficult. But in terms of the routine, the actual, being in the habit of it and having the space that is connected to that habit. When you sit in the place that you do the creative thing daily, even if it's only 10 minutes, when you sit there, maybe your brain goes, this is probably time to switch on and be creative, Here's all my things that make me inspired, that inspire me to be creative. Maybe it's time. This feels like the right time. We also were staying at my mum's place because she's out of town just at the moment. And so we took the opportunity. Oh, well, we'll stay at her place. Bloody beautiful. Save money on a B&B. Tell you what. But then, again, association. This desk is associated with creativity, doing the thing. And work. Putting a lot of different things at this desk, but creativity is the main thing. Whereas, you go to your mum's place, what do you associate it with? You associate it with a home-cooked meal. You associate it with a read book. You associate it with, a couple of glasses of wine and just chill out. Oh, listen to the birds. Listen to the wildlife. The wildlife was great. I will say that. We get such good stuff in Melbourne still. Like, the bird life in Melbourne is still, it's beautiful. Bloody beautiful. That, of course, it doesn't beat the country. A lot more rabbits, though. Which you hate to love, but you do love. Because they're fluffy as hell. That association with that place is perhaps a massive hindrance to try and find your output in that space. Routine and space. I suppose there really is the difference between, like, a creative job where you are on the clock versus creativity as an exercise, as a meditation, as a mental reset, as a journaling exercise. If you're an actor and you're on set, you can't be like, guys, I'm just not in the zone. You're on. They're burning. They are just burning cash while we're all sitting around. So, yeah, you got to fucking get onto it. You got to perform. Different though, perhaps. Maybe not so much, but still, like, you've learnt your lines at that point, you know? You've learnt your lines. Or, like, if you step on stage as a musician and it's time to do the thing, you know your parts. The number of times that I've been on stage and I'm just completely disassociated. I'm singing, I am playing guitar or whatever, I'm rapping, fucking yeah. And I'm not really there. I'm like, I'm thinking about cooking up some dinner later, thinking about what I'm anxious about, thinking about the people in the room. Are there enough people in the room? Is this gig going well? And then I realize it's like reading a book. It's like reading a book and then you're fucking 10 pages deep and you're like, I haven't read a single one of these pages. I've read it. I've not actually taken it in. I've done that on stage where I'm just like not really there. It's not every time, of course, but you know. But you know your lines. So that is different. That is different compared to sitting down and actually writing the original music that you're going to play on that stage. That mode of creation versus performance, actually pulling something from the ether and putting it out there, versus your rehearsed material. And then same too, talking about the improv idea, as I mentioned at the start, those who are gifted with improvisational skills and have rehearsed and practiced the fuck out of being improvisers, be it freestylers, improv comedy, jazz musicians, pick a thing, you know. You go there and you do the thing. You got no plan, you just let it rip. But you're not just letting it rip. There is a plan. You've rehearsed, you've practiced being an improviser. And so people will see you and go like, whoa, you came up with all that on the spot. But it is a different thing. That's still a performance rather. It's a nice kind of middle ground between just the creation, the chiseling of the clay versus the actual. That's a terrible analogy. The actual creation versus the performance, kind of a marriage of the two. One that I find very exciting. One that I find very, very exciting. And have been some of my favorite moments as a creative are those moments when I get to just rock up and just tap into that improvisational brain. That's amazing. What a wondrous experience. But on the day-to-day, on the creation, on the chiseling of the clay, that takes time, it takes routine, and it takes your creative space being set up perfectly. If only it wasn't so. If only it wasn't so that it has to be so perfect. I don't believe that it should be. You know, I've been in this same creative headspace moving forward in far less ideal situations and setups. But I do think the routine is an important part. I think the routine's important. I think where it just becomes, it's just your life now. It's just part of your life. Me and my partners and mine favorite quote from Rick Rubin's book. I can't remember the word creative act or something like that. I can't remember the title of the book. His new book came out like last year, hugely popular. And one of the quotes from it was, the goal in life is not to make art. I might be butchering this quote. The goal in life is not to make art, it is to live a life where art is inevitable. And I think entwining it with every aspect of your life, the way that you talk to people, the way that you set up your spaces, the things that you put into your brain, going to gigs in the city, being around other creatives, that makes it inevitable. It's hard. It's actually hard to be around a bunch of creatives and not yourself want to be a big creative. Even if you have not a musical bone in your body, if you go start hanging around a bunch of musicians and seeing them play all the bloody time, you're probably going to end up being like, hey, do you want some photos taken? Can I do the write-ups? I don't know, you know, even the way you talk, I think, the way you talk around other creatives becomes more dramatic, has a bit more of a flourish, a bit more of a flair. People are just there to entertain one another. That's not always the case. I've talked to some fucking sorry sods of people that are musicians, of course, but like being around creatives just makes creativity, even if it's just the way that you communicate, I think inevitable. I think that's part of the routine. It's part of the way that you set up your life, is just Jam pack it with creativity and people. Live in the city. Go to gigs. Have a fucking pint with your mate and discuss the fucking philosophy. Live life. I had a massive topic that I was going to talk about here, about the death of the internet. That's gonna be next one's. That's good. It'll give me more time to think about it. I think I'm gonna wrap it up there. I've kind of rambled on and going in circles now. Tell me, what hurdles have you gotten out of your way in creativity, and what hurdles are holding you back still? Do you like a chaotic workspace? I enjoyed asking this question a little while back on the podcast. I'll ask it again. Do you enjoy a chaotic workspace covered in stuff? Or do you enjoy a nice simplistic workspace that is as few hurdles as possible? I'm kind of a mix between the two. In front of me is a bunch of like figures and cars and rings and just bits and pieces. Obviously in the back is just a collage of stuff that we've been finding. We're like, oh, that's cool, I like that. Or things that mean something to us, you know? But then the workspace itself is just clean, easy, nothing in the way. Just how I need it, just how I like it. What's yours? That's alright, that's it. Hey, this has been In the Back of My Head podcast, episode 63, baby. If you enjoy it, you can throw me some bucks on Patreon, yada yada. The best thing you can do is just share it. When you see me post some reels, share them. When you see me post a podcast, share it. Or comment, just like hit me with some stuff, you know? How are you doing creatively? What's going on in your head? What's going on in your world? I do hope you're well. Be well. Surround yourself with art. Yeah, that's it. Peace be with you, mate.